Welcome,
All
Terry.
right.
Welcome to Travel Connections.
Thank you, Suzanne. It's great to be here.
Hey, you know what? We got to meet recently, and the minute I met you, I knew I had to ask you to be on the podcast. And we had such an incredible time, both Craig and I at Iganyana. Tell me how to say the name of your tented camp.
So, Iganyana, is you actually said it pretty well. Actually, I'm quite
Okay.
impressed. Most
Okay.
people don't get it right the first time, so you did it great.
Okay.
And it actually means wild dog from the African painted dog, which is what we've named the camp after. Yeah.
And guess
So
what I
it's
have?
literally,
I took it with me.
oh,
Came
wow.
from your camp,
Yeah,
and I treasure
beautiful.
him, and he is on my desk.
Excellent.
Well,
Excellent.
thank you for being here. I want to learn so much more about you and how you got started in this. But I have to tell you,
Yes.
I'd never been to Zimbabwe before or known anyone from Zimbabwe.
Yeah,
What was it
wow.
like growing up in Zimbabwe? And then we'll kind of transition to how you got to where you are.
Okay, so yeah, Zimbabwe is, I guess, is famous for Victoria Falls. That's
Correct.
one of the world's seven wonders, which is why most people will know about Zimbabwe or will learn about it at some stage. But it really is a phenomenal country, and everybody's very sort of there's a lot of bush orientation, and people are comfortable in that sort of lifestyle, outdoor lifestyle. And I grew up in that in a very small country town where our entertainment was always about being outdoors and going to farms and going fishing and camping and stuff like that. And I guess that's for me, that's kind of where the seed of what was planted for what I got into as a career. And I must say I feel guilty sometimes because people say you should always do something that you love and find someone to pay you for it. And I think I've managed to do that.
You have in a brilliant way. So, were you always in tourism or was this a progression?
No, it's
Like,
always been tourism.
okay,
Sort of more, yeah. So it's always been tourism. And it's well, I guess you started. I started as an apprentice. You have to do some training
okay,
to get specific licenses. Become you go through an apprentice stage as a learner guide, and then you become qualified as a professional guide. And it typically takes 4 to 5 years to get enough experience to make it to qualify. But it's quite an intense exam. In Zimbabwe, it's recognized as one of the most difficult guiding exams in the world, and certainly is highly regarded in Africa, particularly. Yeah,
well, I
yeah.
would
It's not
imagine.
an easy one.
No, it's not easy. And, there are so many comfort countries on the continent of Africa. I mean, what is it, 51, 52? I don't even know. Something
Yeah.
like that.
To be honest, I'm not even sure myself.
I know.
But
But
it's somewhere.
the tourism standards are incredible. I was so impressed with the quality of the individuals and the knowledge, the responsibility you have bringing these guests from all over the world to share where you live and the animals, plus the bush. I mean, everything. The knowledge you have blew my mind. I couldn't believe it.
Well, thank you. I didn't think I knew that much, but it
Wow.
obviously worked. And
I knew
yeah,
nothing. I knew nothing. So you grew up in Zimbabwe, and then you moved into tourism, kind of moved up through the ranks. How did the tented camp come about? And I know you have more than one. How did that come about?
wow, that's a long story, and I'll have to
Okay,
give you the short version.
okay, okay.
But
Give me any part
but
of
no,
it.
yeah, all right, I'll give you a part of it and a quick summary, basically. But yeah, so growing up in a small country town is where that seed was planted, I guess, and we always loved being outdoors. But I never sort of had the confidence to go in to do something like that. I always worked for other people in the
Right.
industry. But when I met my wife on a family camping trip, she really inspired me and played a big role in that. And then we actually ended up getting married in a safari camp, and we had 25 elephants and 12 humans as guests.
No, you didn't.
And yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. And some of the elephants were a couple of meters away. And I'll happily share that photo with you at some point if you like to prove it.
Oh, I
But
believe
it was
it.
fun. Well, you've seen with how the elephants come to the camp at the pool, so that gives you an idea. And it was kind of some, not quite, yeah, not quite the same setting. But yeah, that's how how really the passion for and sort of was ignited to get to do something of our own. Having worked in other safari camps, we always saw the pros and cons, and really wanted to do something that really brought people close to nature, without losing the comforts. Sort of be comfortable, but as close to nature as possible, and try to connect people with nature.
Right.
Yeah, so that's where it started. Yeah, in Wangi, actually, in Wangi National Park.
So, oh, in Wenge, that's where you started. I don't think I realized.
Yes, yes, in
Okay.
Wangi. That
So when you talk about a tented camp, so I didn't know what that was going to be like, right? And for our listeners, you actually have like a cement foundation, and the tent sides come down. It's quite kind of chic, luxurious wildlife. I mean, I don't know quite how to describe the decor, but it was everything. When I walked
yeah,
up to your camp and saw everyone dancing and singing and welcoming us, it was like everything I thought that an African
yes.
safari would be. And you nailed it. I mean, that it was exactly what I thought.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that because, yeah, it's a fine line actually between really entertaining people but it's also about being genuine and showing the African culture, and then showing the wildlife without being ostentatious and being going over the top, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think we've got a great team there, and I'm glad that it got through. That you recognized that. That's a good compliment. Thank you.
Well, I did. Well, I could compliment you for days. Well, as you know, you are part of an African series because once I went to Africa and realized how incredible it was, I realized that one episode wasn't enough, two wasn't enough. Well, we're doing three episodes, and Craig
Excellent.
and I discussed our entire trip in the first episode, and then I interviewed Samantha, our tour manager, which is also an integral part of our experience, and then our time with you. And, Terry, I want to talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of the camp because I'd never seen a place like this before. So you drive up and there's this luxurious like meeting space. It's more than a meeting space because it's a bar and a lounge and this view of, I call it the savannah. You call it the,
It's a flea. VLEI, flea.
oh,
Okay, so it's quite
okay.
quite unusual name, but yeah, it is basically a savanna, and those acacia trees are always indicative of Africa. People. We've had many guests arrive there, and they walk up into up the staircase, and they see that view, and it's like, oh wow, this is what I expected. This is what I pictured, and what I was hoping to see, and that was what it was. It really fits their expectations. So we're very blessed to be there. It is an incredible sight, and we're very grateful for that. Yeah, yeah.
Well, and then
We're glad to be.
I don't even know where to even go with this, but the food is spectacular. The people that work for you and for the camp, they make us feel so comfortable, but it's luxurious without being what Americans might call bougie, like too over the top fancy,
Yeah,
right?
right. Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. We call it simple luxury.
Ah,
Yeah,
super luxury.
simple
Okay.
luxury. And that's the thing is you really can go over the top, but then sometimes it distracts from the reality and the genuine Africa we have. We want that's more important to us is to really get people to connect to nature, and feel it's what we call soul food. That's what you get when you go into a camp like that and you spend time in a place like that and connect with elephants and listen to the way they rumble and communicate, and it's just, yeah, you can't really put it into words until you experience it. And I think it looks like to me that by your excitement you might have been bitten by the bug.
Oh, I was bitten in a big way. I want to talk about two stories. First, I'm going to do an easy one. Then we're going to talk about the elephants because that was one one of the most remarkable nights of my life. But I want to jump back to two things, and that is gin and tonics in the bush. That was so much fun. So what happens when you go on these tours is you usually do a game drive in the morning and then you do one in the afternoon. So it's more like we were getting up pretty darn early, because it's hot. So we would get
Yes,
up at
yes.
5 and we were like having tea and scones at 6 o'clock in the morning. Then we would go out, then come back. And then the afternoon drive, sometimes we catch a sunset, sometimes we catch other things. But one of the evenings, we're coming back and we like kind of make a detour off to the side of where the camp is. And you guys have set up this gin and tonic appetizer spread that it was incredible with all of these camp chairs. No one can see my hands right now, but these camp chairs in a circle. Oh, Terry, that was so magical.
Yeah, it's a nice setting under those acacia trees. We call it an acacia grove. It really is a beautiful setting, and it's not far from the waterhole, so you often have animals coming and going. And yeah, it's special. It's very special. I'm glad you enjoyed that.
Oh, it was so much fun. And what we didn't expect was an entire herd of Cape buffalo that was off in the distance, the most dangerous of the big five. And we were safe, of course. But oh my gosh, our photos are insane. Sometimes it's funny. When I was there were so many animals and so much wildlife. It was almost like you planned it, right? Because they all come walking up. And I'm like, what do you mean there's kudu 10 feet away? First of all, I'd never heard of a kudu before I'd gone to Africa. But I mean, and to
Yeah,
you, it's so commonplace, right? You grew up with this.
yeah, yeah. Yes, yeah, it's true. We do grow up with it, and sometimes I must admit we take it for granted, because it's just sort of a way of life for us, and it's part of our environment that we used to. But it's great, we are reminded of how privileged we are when we see people like yourself who really get it and are excited by it. It's encouraging and inspiring for us. Actually, it reminds us of the privilege we have to be there. And for me, connecting with elephants like that on a regular basis is always a good reminder too. Yeah, it's very special.
Well, and I didn't even understand the importance of the elephant and how many there were in Zimbabwe. And that when you take a walk, that you are in a minefield of elephant dung everywhere. I mean, we went on a walking safari with you, and I'll get to that in a second. First, we'll talk about the elephants. So
Mhm.
when I talked to you on Zoom last week, and you said, "Oh, hold on, there's a herd of elephants walking behind me." I mean, who says that, Terry? No one says that ever, and that's your life.
It is. It is very privileged, very, very lucky.
It's so
It is. I
fun.
mean, Wangi. So Wangi National Park is particularly a park that's well known for big elephant herds, large herds of elephant, and sometimes there can be in excess of 100 elephant together, especially in the dry season.
Okay.
And some of the holes you'll have 1,000 elephant visiting in a day in 24 hours. So there are a lot of elephant there, but in our particular area, which is on the Dead Flay, or Savannah, as you called it, there's a particular herd called the presidential herd, and those elephants have become somewhat habituated and more relaxed around people, and they feel safe there, and they see it as a refuge. I mean, they are genuinely wild elephants, and you certainly wouldn't want to jump over the balustrade or anything like that and walk in amongst them, because they wouldn't take a liking to that too nicely,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't come out well. But as they come to you, they're very relaxed and they feel very safe there, which is quite amazing because not far from there, there's community areas where people are growing crops, and
Yes.
so people try and protect their crops and they chase them away. Yet just 8 to 10 kilometers away, 6 miles, 6, 7 miles, or they come to people and find refuge in that. So they really understand the difference between where they're safe and where they're not. They're really intelligent and clever animals. They are very, very special. Gentle giants they can be.
They are gentle giants, and I just didn't understand uh, what I needed to know about elephants. So I think it was the first or second night that we were at your camp, and we were all sitting. It might have been the first night, actually. And we were all sitting in our camp chairs. You have a beautiful campfire looking out on the natural landscape. And what we decided to do is our tour manager, Samantha, wanted to have everyone introduce themselves. Where are you from? What do you like? What do you want to get from your safari? And it was a really nice way for us to get to know each other better. I'm laughing because she had her back to nature behind her, and it's getting dusk now. It's not dark yet, but it's dusk. And all of a sudden, there's like 12 elephants that have slowly walked up and arrived. We didn't even hear them, Terry. And I was speechless. For you, this is every day, right? You see this all the time, but I couldn't believe it. And I was speechless. And you were kind of standing back and observing, and my mind was absolutely blown. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Yeah. And you were so gracious, and you grabbed my iPhone. You're like, do this, stand here. But there are certain things you need to do when you're around elephants, which I learned, that you have to be, quiet and calm and not walk fast. Well, my husband, he was getting cavalier. He's the city boy. He is not around elephants ever. Oh my gosh. And so he goes over, and the elephant makes the trumpet sound, right? Mm-hmm. I thought Craig was gonna go. He literally ran, and both you and I are like, oh, slow down, Craig. Oh my God, he was scared out of his mind, and you were cracking up. But
yeah, no.
My photos, he did get a fright. So you say to me, okay, they're going to go to the pool next. And I'm thinking to myself, what? What do you mean they're going to go to the swimming pool? So obviously you own the place, you know what's going to happen, right? And he goes, you say, go on over there, take off your shoes and sit on the edge of the pool and put your feet in the pool. And I'd say to you, I don't think I can do this. And you're like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. And I did it. And it was, honestly, I can't thank you enough, because I would have hung back, and your knowledge of the elephants was so important to that whole experience.
Thank you. Yeah, I know it is good to know when you know them and you can be confident around them. And it's as though we have an intimate relationship with those elephants. We really understand each other to some degree. It might sound a bit cheesy to say that, but in reality, it's reality. We get to know them, and we know the boundaries. It's like an unwritten rule that they know that they're completely safe that side, that side of the pool, and we're safe this side of the pool. And it's amazing. I'm often sometimes I have to pinch myself to realize that it's not a dream. It's been so special, and we're really grateful to be there and have that opportunity. And I'm so glad we can share it with you.
Well, in addition, the way you configured the camp, that is all for a reason, obviously. So there was a trough. So you have a water hole kind of out. Well, why don't you describe it? The water hole, and then the trough, and then the pool.
So just to back up a little bit, and how we constructed the camp in such a way so that it blends in with nature. The tents themselves are right between the elephant pathways and the wildlife path. Not just elephant in the area. There's lots of other wildlife, but we've tried not to cut down any trees whatsoever. We've worked around the trees, and I think if you remember in the dining room, there's a tree going through the floorboards, and there's trees inside the some of the rooms. We really try to blend in, and so we've become a part of it. And so the elephants really do feel comfortable out there. And so we built the trough, which is about 40 meters, I would say, from the main fireplace, and then the swimming pool just adjacent to that. But from experience, we knew that it was not ideal to build a swimming pool at ground level. So it's a raised pool, because otherwise you end up with elephants in your swimming pool instead of just drinking from it. And even though we pump fresh water into the water hole, into the trough, in fact, it flows from a trough into a mud wallow where the elephants like to go and play in the mud and throw mud on their backs.
Yes.
They still, with fresh water going in there, they still prefer to drink from the swimming pool. They seem to like blue water, blue, clean water. And it's phenomenal. It just makes it a little bit challenging keeping the pool clean sometimes, because after they've been playing in the mud and they come and drink from the pool, you have this black cloud of mud that just goes through your crystal clear pool.
Well, and it's a beautiful setting, and your sunsets are so glorious. The funny part is the elephants didn't go away. It wasn't like they came and left. They stayed while we had dinner. They were there a couple of hours.
Yes, yeah, that was very fortunate. They don't do that all the time.
Okay.
So I think they put on a special show for you, but and they're not there every night. So I'm glad they did come that night. And but I mean, in the peak of the dry season, they come almost every night, but there's no guarantee.
Do they
So yeah,
really?
I'm glad that. Yes,
I did not know they came that often. Well, so now I want to talk about our walking safari. So that was a unique experience. Typically, you're always in a Jeep when you're on safari and you're out and you're looking for animals and looking at the habitat and understanding just the whole ecosystem. It was really, really interesting walking with you. Talk to our listeners a little bit about the things that you like to share when we're walking literally among the animals.
Yeah, there's a very big difference. Being in a vehicle, you can sort of command the drive or the safari with the power and the size of the vehicle, and the animals are somewhat habituated to the vehicle. As soon as you step down to the ground, there's a sense of vulnerability. You're a whole lot smaller than you are in a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And then the animals, they feel a threat to some degree, because obviously man over the tens of thousands of years or millions of years, whatever you want to decide, man has persecuted animals at that time frame, and so they're more afraid of us as soon as you identified as a human on the ground, and so that creates an element of excitement. Although it's very, very safe, and particular time of day that we're walking, the animals tend to be further away from water, getting to better food sources. But it really is just about being in the bush and being really close to nature and enjoying the tranquility of it. You get to learn some stuff and see the small stuff that you wouldn't pick up in a vehicle. Mm-hmm. You hear, you smell, you don't have the distraction. You get to see the animals in their natural environment, what they would be doing every day. Like we do, you wake up and you have your coffee and you have your breakfast and then you go to work, and they get it. You have a routine, and the animals have their own routine, and whatever you're doing in your life, their life continues, and in that wildlife, in that environment. So you get to be a part of that and experience that, and it's so nice learning how everything is intertwined, and there's absolutely nothing in the bush that happens without reason. Everything, there's a reason for it, every single piece of it, and it's interesting to learn the cycles of life. It's fascinating, and I never stop learning. I don't know. I often get compliments, and I don't think they're due on how much I know, because I always think of how much I don't know, and there's so much to learn still. And it's nice today on the walk we did this morning, I learned something new, and you just never stop learning, and it's part of the joy of it, and I love sharing that passion of just really listening to all the different sounds in the bush and the different smells, and then trying to get people to learn about the cycles of life and the reasons for things to be the way they are. For example, so many people think of elephant with a poor digestive system.
Okay.
And in reality, that poor digestive system plays a huge role in seed translocation. Moving seed from an area where it can't germinate to an area where it absolutely can, then it's encompassed in a great fertilizer in terms of their droppings. And that's just it's just a phenomenal part of life and part of the cycle.
Right.
And then the doggy comes along and then rolls that into a ball and he plants that in the ground. It's magical.
It
It's
was
all
a
planned.
magical. And in the relation with trees and trees with other trees,
Mm.
we walked and we came up to a tree that was kind of sideways and it was all twisted. And you had
Yes.
explained that the elephants had been using their trunks to twist it because that's like one of the things that they do. And you want to speak to that? That was incredible.
Yeah, so that particular tree is quite unique. You don't see that. I haven't seen that in many other places, and there are two of those trees, two or three, in fact, there's three in front of the camp. And they've, at a young age, when the seed germinated, the tree was probably just a small bush, maybe about 2, 3 feet high. And the elephants use their trunk and they twist around the tree, and then they normally strip off the leaves, pulling off the leaves and stripping off the going around the thorns, because they're
Right.
full of thorns, big white thorns, and
Right.
the trees managed to stay like that. Yeah, I mean, if that tree could talk, he would say he'd survived went through the jaws of an elephant. Literally. At a young age, he could have been gone. Could have been eaten. And yeah, so it's fascinating, and it's just amazing that it grew out that way. And
Right.
I've never seen it anywhere else.
Yeah.
And it took a long time to figure it out. I must say, I couldn't understand it because there's so many trees around it that
Sure.
are normal and straight.
Right.
And to have these couple that are so unique, it was interesting. And these are the kind of things that you learn about just by spending time in the bush, and you
Hmm.
start to put one and two
Hmm.
together. Okay, that's how you get to three. Okay, now it makes sense. So yeah, it's just yeah, such a
I
blessing.
loved it. It was like a corkscrew. Well,
Yes.
we're going to finish our conversation talking about tourism in Africa and how important it is. And two things. One is tell me a little bit about tourism and is it the most important area of business really for Africa or for Zimbabwe? Let's talk about that. And number two, um, what do you want people to know about where you come from?
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, tourism it's a big part of our GDP in Zimbabwe, and we have high targets still. But Victoria Falls being the draw card,
Mhm.
is a great draw card to have,
Yes, it is.
and we're trying to. Yeah, it's a phenomenal place, isn't it?
Oh,
But it's great that we're starting to grow out, and it's having some spin off and expanding into Wangi National Park, which is just a couple of hours away from Victoria Falls,
right.
and further and go beyond, into Kariba and Mana Pools and places like that, and all those other parks, National Park and Manarajo down in the south, but in reality is that tourism plays such a huge role in conservation, and people don't realize that when they come on safari, they're on holiday, just enjoying themselves. But it creates a sustainability. We as safari operators, we could never, we can't exist, we can't maintain a presence in those areas, and particularly Wangi National Park, which is a park that's very dependent on water being pumped from underground. Um, it's so essential that safari operators there and friends of Wangi and national parks are there to help maintain things in the park and to make sure the water is pumped for the
Mhm.
wildlife. Because without it, there wouldn't be, and those areas would become cattle areas. And
Right.
yet, the wildlife plays such a big role in it's an incredible resource. Those animals were there before we were there, and yeah, so and obviously for the whole ecology and the environment, it's so important. And we would love our children to be able to grow up and still be able to observe wildlife the way we've been able to be privileged to experience. And I think I think a lot of the time, COVID actually is something that sort of really sort of punctuated it for me, in that when COVID, when we had to close down camp and have no guests in camp, we didn't have any presence for a couple of months actually.
Yeah.
But within a few weeks of not having a presence there and having no guests on safari, no guests going for drives or walks, we all of a sudden we all of a sudden saw signs of poaching, and it was so quick. And it just made me realize how important it is just to maintain a presence, and to be in those areas, and then to be able to supply the water for the wildlife. So it really is critical, and we truly appreciate it when their guests come on safari, and especially it's a benefit when they connect and they really enjoy it, and then because that's important to bringing more guests back to you, and we've got to keep the momentum up and grow it, because we, in reality, we competing with other sectors, other industries like mining and things like that, which are often destructive, and not then they're a finite resource, and we really have a renewable resource that we need to look after and protect our environment, and yeah, so we're really excited that with what you guys are doing, and hopefully getting the exposure to get more people into Africa, and hopefully more into Zimbabwe in particular. Yeah,
Sure.
it's so important. It really is. Yeah.
It's something I didn't really quite
Yeah,
understand the magnitude of until I was there, and how important it is for us to visit and for us to talk about it and for us to share it. Because the more,
yes.
and then it will grow, and you can maintain, your relationship with the animals is everything, right? Without people come to see them, and that's why Africans seem to revere the animals, because they're so important to the natural landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you just compare it to the mining sector, to the timber sector, it just, those can be run sustainably and eco-friendly way, but not quite to the same level that this tourism can be. And it's a soft footprint that we're really looking for, and that it doesn't have that benefits the environment and hopefully enhances it. And the reality is that we as humans, when we interfere with nature to some degree, and we are become responsible and have to maintain that. For example, like I mentioned, Wangi has got very limited surface water, and so the wildlife is really dependent on us pumping water there. And if we for some reason had to stop pumping water, there would be an ecological disaster. And so it's become more and more dependent as we've developed as a park and as a safari operation. So I feel somewhat responsible, and that's only helped by getting that exposure and having people come out and have a good safari, and being willing to go out and spread that word for us. It's so important.
Yeah. Oh,
Thank you.
it is a magical experience. People talk about going to Africa as a bucket list, and it always seems like they wait till so late in life to do that. And my advice to people is don't wait, because it will influence your life forever. I am forever touched and changed. I get teary from the people I met, to the animals that I got to see, to the landscape, to learning about the culture of all the people that I met in various areas and countries of Africa. I'm forever changed. And I think people should do it sooner than later. So,
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I'm touched that what you've just said. It means that we've really, that you did connect, and that's a tick in our box, and that it's a goal scored.
You are succeeding. You are succeeding. Well, unfortunately, our time is now ending. How best?
I had a second question, John.
Oh,
I had a second question to answer, didn't I?
Say it again.
What it was. I had a second question to answer, and I can't remember what it was.
Oh, wait. We talked about why is tourism important, and what do you want people to know about Africa? I feel like Is there anything else that you wish that you had gotten a chance to tell us that we didn't touch on today?
Yeah, I think, well, the main thing is that Africa is special, and being close to nature is special, and it really, I really call it soul food. I personally struggle to be in a city, because it just feels it's so enriching, and it gives, you can appreciate creation and everything around it, and it puts life in perspective, and it can only be your benefit. Um, Really encourage people to come out and be inspired. It's exciting, and there's so much benefit. No, it's not just to the wildlife; it's to the community and the people around it. And really, the goals for that are endless. Africa is. There's a lot of poverty in Africa, and a lot of that can be solved through successful wildlife operations. So we really want to encourage people to come over and experience amazing things, but at the same time, without them realizing it, they are benefiting so many other people and the wildlife that's out there, which is so important for our environment, for global warming and all that, to combat that. So, yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say.
Good. When you said it very well. Well, I know our
Thank you.
listeners want to learn more. I know you have you have Facebook and Instagram and a beautiful website. Is it just under Iganyana Tent Camp? I think is the
Tented Camp. That's correct. Yeah.
okay.
So if you look at Tented Camp, that's where you'll find us. And please look us up.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Terry, thank you so much. It's so lovely to see you again. And Craig says hi. He's on another call. Otherwise, he would come in and say hello to you. But thank you again. This was an incredible conversation, an incredible experience you provided for us.
Absolute pleasure. Anytime. We look forward to having you back.
Thank you. Oh gosh, I want to come back so bad. Okay. Thank you, Terry.
Absolute pleasure. Take care. Hey.
Bye.
Cheers for now. Bye.